Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone over the NFC Playoff Predictions. We had the Lions coming out of the AFC, the 49ers getting the 1 seed in the conference, and the wild cards being the Rams, Packers, and Cowboys, although that last wild card spot is up for contention between the Bears and the Rams, I think. In the AFC, it's a much different story. I think you need a base of 10 wins to get in the AFC. We've talked a little bit about how stacked the AFC, but the AFC is, but we'll talk about which of those teams made that 10-win threshold in just a second. Before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I appreciate anything you guys do have to say. Appreciate everybody sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to continue our NFL playoff preview, talking a little bit about the AFC playoff predictions. The AFC is, again, I think just a much better conference than the NFC. I don't particularly think it's close. You have the Chiefs who have won back-to-back Super Bowls. It's just much more competitive as well. The top quarterback play in general is all in the AFC. You go through a list, I think, outside of, potentially Jalen Hurts, there's not another NFC quarterback that you would put in the top 5 of the league. The rest would be AFC. It's just a much better league. You go down the list of the 16 AFC teams outside of the Patriots, Titans, maybe Patriots, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. You could potentially see all the other teams making the playoffs. Maybe not the Chargers, but there's a bigger majority of teams that you could see making the playoffs in the AFC, at least in my opinion, than in the NFC. So taking a look at those division winners, it's going to be tight. For all the divisions outside of the AFC West, I think it's going to be an interesting battle. I have the Chiefs taking the AFC West, the back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions, looking to get the first ever three-peat in the Super Bowl era. The Chiefs are on a path to the playoffs pretty easily. The Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, for as much change as those teams are going through, I don't think they're going to be able to put up much of a fight against the Chiefs, and they'll be able to slide into the playoffs pretty easily. I have them grabbing the 2 seed this year. Every other division is up for grabs. In the AFC East, outside of the Patriots, you have 3 playoff contenders in the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills, all of which have been very successful in the past, with the exception of the Jets, who now get Aaron Rodgers to pair with an elite defense. Should be good as long as they can stay healthy. The Jets, I do have winning the division, although I have it very close. The Bills, I have finishing 3rd behind the Dolphins and the Jets. It's a very, very tight division race, right? The Dolphins have an easy schedule in the beginning, one of the toughest schedules at the end. The Jets, I'm riding because of their defense mostly, and the fact that if you go to last season, they finished 7-10 with Zach Wilson at quarterback. You add Aaron Rodgers into that mix, along with better weapons. There's just not much of a downside here. The Jets, I think, are going to be a very, very good team, and I know some people are down on Aaron Rodgers, but the Jets are a team that absolutely should. They don't really have many weaknesses. They should make a playoff run. I have them winning this division. In the AFC South, you have an interesting battle outside of the Titans. Again, either the Jags, the Colts, or the Texans could all win this division. You have the Jaguars, who started 8-3 last year, went through a collapse, paid Trevor Lawrence. I think they're 3rd place in this division, but I could see a world where they win this. Then you have the Colts, the Texans. The Texans' case is the most straightforward one. You have C.J. Stroud, Rookie of the Year winner, coming off one of the best rookie quarterback seasons in the history of the NFL. You add in Stephon Diggs to that mix, an improved defense as well. It's going to be tough to beat this team. All the pieces should be lining into place. But the Colts are a team that if they had won on the last week of the season, which they were one dropped pass away from doing so, would have been the representative in that playoffs. And they have a big upgrade at quarterback, at least in my opinion. Anthony Richardson comes in, and he is the biggest question of the NFL season for me. Maybe not the biggest question of the NFL season for everyone, but he is one of the bigger questions. Is he going to be that guy that everyone looks at his tools and says, yep, he's the next great quarterback? Or is he going to not be able to live up to his name, be more inaccurate? The flaws that we saw of him in his college games, he's very inexperienced. This one comes down, I believe, to the Texans versus the Colts. Both of these teams, I think, could win this division. I'm leaning towards the Texans. They're a safer pick, but there is a world here where Anthony Richardson goes off and wins the division. We'll get to the wild card stuff in a second, but I think there's a lot of really good teams in the AFC in this division. The Texans win this one. And the last division to go over is maybe the most interesting, the AFC North, with the Ravens, the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers. All of these teams should be over 500. This is probably the best division in football. It's one with lots of great defenses, MVP candidates at quarterbacks. It's going to be a lot of fun. The Ravens have reigning MVP Lamar Jackson. Add Derrick Henry to that mix, as well as the best weapons he's ever had to pair with an elite defense from last year. Now, I do think the defense is going to take a slight step back, but the offense is going to take a step up, so I think it's going to kind of even itself out. The Bengals get MVP candidate Joe Burrow back. Joe Burrow, as long as he can stay healthy, and hopefully Jamar Chase can come out of his hold-in and play a couple games for the Bengals this year. This is one of the more talented teams in the entire NFL. We did our power rankings yesterday. The Bengals came in at 5. The Browns, powered by defense, especially by Myles Garrett, the reigning defensive player of the year. He's a guy that could repeat arguably the best defender in the league now that Aaron Donald has retired. It's going to be a tight race, and you can't forget about the Steelers. The Steelers always find a way to go over 500. They still have Mike Tomlin. They still have their quarterback dilemma, but it's an upgrade at quarterback regardless of who they play. I have them finishing 9-8, and that is 4th place in that division. I do have the Ravens winning this division, though, and grabbing the 1 seed. I just think the addition of Derrick Henry is going to be too much, and they won the 1 seed last year. I don't see why they can't repeat again. Not saying Lamar Jackson is going to do what he did last year, but adding Derrick Henry is going to make it a lot easier for them to throw the ball. Maybe it'll make it easier for Derrick Henry to run the ball than it was in Tennessee anyway. But getting to the wild cards here. Through the division winners, I have the Ravens with the 1 seed, the Chiefs with the 2 seed, the Texans with the 3 seed, and the Jets with the 4 seed. When you get to the wild card, again, like I said, I think it's going to take 10 wins to get into this. I have the Bengals finishing 3rd in wins in the AFC behind the Ravens and the Chiefs. They get that 5 seed. 6th is going to go to the Dolphins. They're going to have 11 wins. I think they lose the division in a tiebreaker with the Jets. Because of that, the Dolphins are relegated to the 6th seed instead of the 4 seed, which they would have had if they had won the division. And finally, that 7th seed. We had a tiebreaker. It was between the Browns and the Colts. I had both of them winning 10 games. Based on, they didn't have any head-to-head, so then it goes to whoever wins the most games against the AFC. And I'm giving this one to the Colts. They play in an easier division, which is going to make them get that tiebreaker a little bit easier. Instead of having to go up against the Ravens and the Bengals twice, they have to go up against the Titans, Jaguars twice, which is a little bit easier than those 2 teams, in my opinion. Because of that, I'm giving the Colts the 7 seed. So it's Ravens 1, Chiefs 2, Texans 3, Jets 4, Bengals 5, Dolphins 6, Colts 7. So the Ravens get the bye here. The Chiefs should destroy the Colts in the first round. The Texans-Dolphins is going to be interesting. It's going to be a warm game regardless, so we're not going to get any of that kind of weather situation. Although I am leaning towards the Dolphins in this one. It's going to be in a dome in Houston. And as good as CJ Stroud and the Texans are, I think their defense isn't quite going to be able to match up with Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. Then we get the Jets and the Bengals, and this is probably my favorite playoff matchup so far. It's going to be in New York. I think the Jets take care of business in this one. This is going to be a tight game. Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Burrow should be a lot of fun. I'm giving it to the Jets, though. So in the second round, we have the Ravens taking on the Dolphins, the Jets taking on the Chiefs, and I'm leaning towards, again, in Baltimore. I think the Ravens are able to beat the Dolphins, and I'm actually going to give this one to the Jets here. As much as Patrick Mahomes is great, this feels like the kind of team that's built to beat the Chiefs with that defense and a team that can handle the cold weather too. I think if there's going to be a team to do it, it's going to be the Jets, and I think they take care of them in the second round of the playoffs. Then we have a Jets-Ravens matchup in the AFC Championship game. Giving this one to Lamar and the Ravens, the Jets coming off of a crazy victory against the Chiefs, setting up for a Ravens-Lions Super Bowl. And this one will be a lot of fun. I'm giving the Ravens a Super Bowl. Lamar, not on an MVP year, finally gets his. This should be a fun season. But let me know what you think of the NFL season upcoming. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you have in the Super Bowl? My Super Bowl matchup is the Lions taking on the Ravens, but there's a lot of different combinations there. The Chiefs absolutely could come in and get that three-peat. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're getting back into the world of college football. We're going to talk about the AP Top 25 list. It dropped at about 2 o'clock today. We're going to go over their rankings, see if I agree or disagree with where they had a lot of these teams. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.